Emmanuel Lumineaux loves London. When the French entrepreneur launched his startup in 2014, he wouldn't have picked any other place. He runs an online financial platform for investing in real estate across the world.
In Berlin or London? Berlin? Next. Up to you.
Following the Brexit vote, Emmanuel decided to expand outside the UK. Today's staff meeting involves a Skype link-up with a new employee in Berlin.
London, unfortunately, is very in the air, and we needed a place where we can carry on being very agile. We have opened an office in Berlin, and we have stopped hiring in London. We made the decision of Berlin within 3 weeks of Brexit.
So, is London no longer the place to be? The dynamic growth of the digital and tech industries has been one of the UK's economic success stories over the last decade, with London branding itself as Europe's answer to America's Silicon Valley.
This is the heart of the thriving East London tech scene, and as such, this area has even become known as Silicon Roundabout. But the vote to leave has delivered a shock to the system and an opportunity for London's competitors. They're all looking to gain, hoping Brexit means Texit.
London now faces stiff competition from rival European startup hubs, such as Dublin, Paris and Lisbon. But it's the German capital, London's closest tech rival, which has been making the biggest play. Berlin's city government approached both British startups and larger corporations in the wake of the Brexit vote. Berlin's Senator for Economics and Technology says she's held serious talks with around 60 British companies.
Uncertainty is always the enemy of investment. And I'm convinced that there are many companies that will decide to keep their London roots, but to have an office in continental Europe as well, something that wouldn't have happened without Brexit.
For Emmanuel, the main reason for opening up in Berlin was talent. He was concerned about not being able to continue to hire in London the best people from across Europe. And he's far from alone. In a post-Brexit survey of UK tech companies, more than half say it will now be more difficult to attract and retain the best employees. And 70% want a clear message from the government on EU residents' ability to work in the UK. Pedro Oliveira, who runs a recruitment service for tech professionals across Europe, says the Brexit vote had an immediate impact on candidates' desire to move to Britain.
People actually removed themselves from hiring processes. They actually had like 2-3 interviews. They were probably getting hired, and they just removed themselves. I'm not interested in the UK anymore, because of all this political instability. There's other countries that are more stable, and I want to go to them. That's it. It's simple.
Gerard Gregg runs the state-backed consultancy Tech City UK. He says the government is committed to safeguarding the sector.
The digital economy itself is now contributing over 10% of overall GDP. Now, when you compare that to the US, which is 8%, if you look at the EU average, it's about 5.5%.
But won't Brexit knock that momentum, especially with the uncertainty over the regulatory environment?
I don't see why we would anticipate a slowdown, given the fact that we've led the way in tech and digital tech policy. There's a critical mass of expertise. The conditions for starting and growing a digital business is unrivaled, in my opinion, in Europe. And I think unless there are any major blunders, I don't see anything stopping us in continuing to be on that growth trajectory.
British companies attracted $1.3 billion in venture capital funding in the first 6 months of the year, matching the same period last year. And investment in UK tech remains strong, with more than 40 deals signed in the month after the Brexit vote. But scratch beneath the surface of these impressive headline figures, and a less rosy picture emerges.
A lot has changed since the Brexit vote, but we're just not fully seeing the impact yet, as venture capitalist Andre de Hees explains.
I'm astonished that government officials and other experts are claiming that there's no long-term impact. Venture funds have been struggling to raise funds. I know of 5 that were poised to launch in July and August, and only 1 of them was able to launch. And on the company side, raising from venture funds, there's been an almost 50% decrease in capital deployed in Q3 2016 relative to the same period in 2015.
Despite the challenges, fund managers agree that nimble startups, far more than large corporations, will find ways to innovate and thrive.
Brexit is going to add another complexity. We need to be more agile, but we don't think London will disappear. And I think we are one of the few already who act within a month and a half, future-proofing our business model, where others are still waiting to have the Article 50 to be activated and see what happens. And that 1 year, 2 years, 3 years play to our strength.